You walk into a room, people smile, but something's different. They don't meet your eyes the same way. They don't laugh as freely. The air shifts. Subtly, tensely. You thought change would inspire them. Instead, it unsettles them. Because they don't hate you. They fear you. They fear the way you've started seeing the world with new eyes. They fear the way you no longer react out of habit. No longer laugh when disrespected. No longer nod when your gut says no. Inner strength is not applause-worthy. It is disturbing. It doesn't make you relatable. It makes you untouchable. And in a world addicted to comfort, that's dangerous. You used to perform. Now you're present. You used to please. Now you pause. And that pause, that silence, feels like judgment. To those who still sleep, Nietzsche once said, "When you gaze long into the abyss gazes back into you." This video is not comfort. It is confrontation. It is for those who feel a rupture coming, who sense something breaking inside, but don't want to run anymore. If that's you, stay. Because what's coming won't be gentle, but it will be real. And if you dare to stay, you'll never see yourself the same again. If this hits something inside you, hit subscribe. We're just getting started. No one tells you this. That before you become strong, you will feel weak. Not because you're broken, but because you've started to see. You see the relationships that only existed because you stayed quiet. You see the compliments that never meant anything. You realize you've been smiling just to be accepted. Living in a way that made others comfortable. The first awakening doesn't come through light. It comes through a sudden shiver. In the dark, a quiet moment when you realize you've spent half your life playing someone else's role. You start to pull back, not out of anger, but out of breath. You need air. You need space to ask, who am I? And who have I been pretending to be? Nietzsche called this the birth pain of the spirit. You no longer belong to what was, but the new version of you hasn't yet taken shape. You're in between, and in between is the most dangerous place to be. No one understands you anymore. Conversations feel hollow. Reassurance sounds fake. You try to explain, but the more you speak, the more alien you feel. This is the moment. Most people turn back. They choose noise, distraction, familiar faces that only ask for the version of you that doesn't grow. They return to being likable, relatable, safe. But you are still walking, still shedding. Nietzsche didn't admire happiness. He admired pain. That doesn't flinch. He honored those who walk with bleeding feet and eyes fixed on the horizon. This path is not for the fragile, because real strength is born not in comfort, but in private agony, in pain no one sees, in nights where you wonder if anyone will ever truly understand you. And in that silence, if you don't run, if you choose to stay, then you've passed the first threshold, the threshold of pain, and the beginning of rebirth. Comment below. What part of you did you have to hide just to be accepted? You were taught to fear chaos, to treat it as failure, as a symptom that something's wrong with you, that if your thoughts are loud, your emotions messy, your path unclear, you must be broken. But Nietzsche disagreed. He saw something else, something deeper, something dangerous. He believed real strength isn't born in clarity. It's born in the storm. He wrote, "You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star." That wasn't metaphor. That was medicine. Because chaos isn't your enemy, it's your fire. Your raw material, the pressure that molds or mutilates. Most people run. They distract. They numb. They shrink from the noise inside. But you're still here. Still standing in the storm. Still breathing through the mess. And that is rare. To feel the weight and not look away. To sit in the middle of it and whisper, I'm not done yet. Order is safe, but sterile. It gives you structure, but it steals your evolution. Chaos is brutal, unpredictable, but real. It doesn't lie. It doesn't flatter. It breaks everything. That was never real to begin with. And in that breaking, you rebuild. But this time, with truth. Nietzsche believed, human beings don't evolve gradually. We fall, we shatter, we burn. Then, we choose not to go back, but to rise with our own hands, our own scars, our own rules. That's the power of chaos. But it's also the risk, because chaos alone can drown you, swallow you, leave you numb. It is not the chaos itself that shapes you. It's your relationship to it. Can you stay without begging for relief? Can you walk through fire without demanding applause? Can you face yourself with no masks left and still say, yes, this is who I choose to be? That's what Nietzsche called power. Not control over others, but control over your own becoming. The storm doesn't stop, but you learn how to breathe in it. You want to build a mind so strong it terrifies people. Start here, in the chaos, not to conquer it, but to let it reshape you. If you've walked through chaos and came out sharper, share this with someone still inside the storm. For most of your life, you were told there's a plan, a path, a reason behind everything, that someone, somewhere, is in control, watching over it all. You just need to trust, to believe, to wait. But Nietzsche didn't believe that. He believed life comes empty, and you are the one who must fill it. When he said, God is dead, he wasn't mocking religion. He was sounding an alarm. He was killing the illusion. The illusion that there's a higher authority writing the meaning for you. He stripped away the sky and left you with one thing: responsibility. No divine plan, no built-in justice, no cosmic purpose. To fall back on, just you, alone, looking into the void and realizing it's your hands that must build the bridge. Most people collapse here. The weight feels unbearable. The silence feels cruel. But look again. There is no freedom greater than this. No permission. More powerful. The knowing. It's all on you. Because when you stop waiting, you start moving. When you stop hoping, you start choosing. And that is when the weak fade and the strong begin to rise. Nietzsche saw this moment as sacred, the death of the victim, the birth of the builder. When there's no meaning given, you're free to create one. Not borrowed, not inherited, but yours. But don't lie to yourself. This freedom comes with a price. You lose the comfort of blaming others. You lose the ease of being told what's right. You lose the fake peace of believing there's a reason for everything. What you gain is brutal autonomy. You begin to think for yourself, speak from clarity, act from alignment, not because someone told you to, but because you chose to. And people will notice. They won't understand. They'll say you're rebellious, cold, unrelatable. But what they're really seeing is someone who stopped begging for rescue and started building themselves. This is not philosophy. This is fire. It tears down the old scaffolding, then hands you the bricks. And if you're willing to build without applause, to live without a manual, to rise without guarantees, then you've already done what most never will. You've buried the illusion, and now you begin to rise. Tell us below, what illusion are you finally ready to bury? Once you stop waiting, once you stop hoping to be saved, you arrive at something rare, a threshold Nietzsche believed very few ever cross. Not the path of the believer, not the path of the follower, but the path of the one who creates. The Übermensch, the overman, not a superhero, not a god, but a human who has burned through every borrowed identity and risen with values forged from fire. He is not moral. He is not immoral. He is beyond. He doesn't ask, what is allowed? He asks, what is worthy? He doesn't seek permission. He doesn't adapt. He imposes meaning onto the world. While others follow rules, he shapes them. While others kneel to truth, he sculpts it. From blood, from solitude, from will. And that is why he terrifies. Because the Übermensch is not built from approval. His identity does not require validation. It stands alone. He lives by an inner law that no one else can access. He walks a path only he can see. And because of that, he cannot be broken. But becoming him requires sacrifice. You will have to kill the part of you that still wants to be chosen. The part that still explains itself, that still hopes to be loved by those who never saw you. You will have to say goodbye to the need to belong, to the habit of shrinking, to the comfort of being understood. Most cannot bear this. They call it loneliness, madness, isolation. But Nietzsche knew the truth. The Übermensch is not alone. He is free. And in that freedom, he becomes dangerous, not because he harms others, but because his presence exposes their smallness. He walks into the room, and without a word, everyone feels it. This is not ego. This is evolution. He is not here to fit in. He is here to replace everything that made you forget who you really are. You want to build a mind so strong it terrifies. Then stop mimicking strength and start creating it. From silence, from pain, from truth that no one gave you. The Übermensch isn't a title. It's a decision to walk alone, to burn the script, to become the one who writes the next one. If this part woke something dangerous in you, subscribe. You're not alone in this awakening. This is the part no one prepares you for. Not in school, not in books, not even in the deepest philosophy. That the stronger you become, the lonelier it gets. The more you think for yourself, the fewer people will know how to think with you. The more real you become, the more counterfeit people disappear. Nietzsche understood this. He called it the solitude of the strong, because real strength does not attract the crowd, it repels it, not by choice, but by nature. When you stop laughing on cue, stop nodding out of politeness, stop diluting your words just to be accepted, you become hard to absorb. You sit at the same table, but you no longer eat from the same hunger. You listen, but you don't play along. And suddenly, your silence feels threatening. They say, "You've changed. You've grown cold. Too serious. Too much." But what they really mean is that you've become unmanageable. And that is when the test begins. Because now you stand alone in a desert of noise. No one claps. No one reassures. No one tells you you're doing great. You look around, and it's just you, and your truth, and the echo of your own breath. Most people can't take it. They run back to noise, to applause, to easy company. They'd rather be small, with others, tanzova ein, by themselves. But you are not them. If you're still here, still listening, still walking, it means you've already lost the need to be followed. You've learned that solitude is not a punishment. It is proof that you're no longer pretending. Nietzsche saw this not as isolation, but as purification. When no one is watching, you meet yourself. The unmasked version, the wild one, the whole one. And in that raw silence, something ancient wakes up. The part of you that doesn't ask to be understood. The part that remembers you never belonged to the herd. And that's the moment you begin to rise. Not socially, not publicly, but inwardly. And what rises is not just strength, but presence. The presence that doesn't beg, that doesn't soften, that doesn't flinch. So if you feel alone, good. That means you're walking the path that no one can walk for you. Because the ones who truly change the world, the ones who build minds so strong they terrify, are always the ones who walked alone first. Drop a comment. Have you felt the cost of growing too real for the room? When we imagine danger, we picture tyrants, kings, systems that crush from above. But Nietzsche warned us, that's not where the real danger hides. The real enemy is not a dictator. It's the crowd. Not the man in the palace, but the people standing right beside you. Because collective mediocrity doesn't need power. It has numbers. It has smiles. It has silence. It tells you, don't speak too loudly. Don't dream too big. Don't shine too bright. And it punishes you with something worse than hate. It punishes you with absence. It stops clapping. It stops calling. It disappears until you shrink back down to who you were. That's the danger Nietzsche feared. Not oppression from above, but comfort from the side. He called it slave morality, a system created by the weak to make sure no one becomes strong, where strength is called arrogance, ambition is selfishness, and independence is labeled cold. It disguises fear as kindness, conformity as humility, resentment as virtue. And you, if you dare to grow, become the problem. Not because you attacked, but because your presence revealed their stagnation. They say, you make others uncomfortable. What they mean is, you make others aware, and awareness is a threat to those who built their life on autopilot. You didn't say anything wrong. You just said something real. And in a world addicted to lies, truth feels violent. So they try to shrink you through shame, through sarcasm, through silence. They'll mock your intensity, call your focus unhealthy, label your clarity as ego, But it's not about you, it's about them. Because when you rise, you become a mirror to everything they ran from. That's why mediocrity doesn't need force. It uses familiarity. It uses repetition. It uses guilt. And it whispers, be normal. Be safe. Be like us. But Nietzsche knew, if you obey that voice, you'll bury your greatness in a grave called acceptance. You want to build a mind so strong it terrifies, then make peace with being misunderstood, with being judged, with being alone, in your truth. Because when you stop serving the herd, you start serving your becoming. And that is what they truly fear. If you've ever been punished for growing, write, I won't shrink in the comments. And share this with someone fighting the same silent war. Once you've faced the chaos, once you've walked alone, once you've resisted the herd, you arrive at a different kind of battlefield, not against others, but against yourself. Because raw power is never enough. Without direction, it's noise. Without clarity, it's dangerous. Nietzsche understood this, that the final stage of strength is not domination, it's discipline. The world trains you to react, to explode, to collapse. But the Übermensch does none of that. He chooses, he calculates, he holds, not out of fear, but out of precision. This is self-mastery, when your emotions stop being drivers and start becoming signals, when your anger becomes strategy, when your doubt becomes sharpening, when your silence becomes control. Most people are owned by their own impulses. They lash out, then regret. They crave, then submit. They fear, then obey. But not you. Not anymore. You've started training a mind that doesn't flinch, that doesn't need to respond right away, that doesn't seek to be liked. You wait. You observe. You plan 10 moves ahead. Every time you don't lash out, you sharpen the blade. Every time you hold the line, you polish the edge. This is how you become untouchable. Not because you fight harder, but because you fight only when it matters. You don't react. You respond. You don't escape. You endure, and in that endurance, you become something rare. Someone who can sit in discomfort and find stillness. Someone who can feel pain without losing direction. Nietzsche didn't admire suppression. He admired transformation. You don't kill your emotions. You weaponize them. Every feeling becomes fuel. Every setback becomes material, until you're no longer controlled by what happens, but by what you choose to do with it. That is the essence of mastery. You want a mind so strong it terrifies. Then build one that bends to no mood, that obeys no instinct, blindly, that doesn't chase, that doesn't beg, but moves with ruthless clarity and silent command. If this gave you language for your inner discipline, like this video and keep walking. We're building something rare here. By now, you've stopped performing. You've stopped explaining. You've stopped shrinking. You don't need applause anymore. You don't even need agreement. You just are. And that is terrifying. Because when you become real, when you no longer hide, or soften, or translate yourself, you become a mirror, not the comforting kind, but the one that exposes. You enter a room, And without saying a word, you unsettle people, not because you judge, but because you reflect. Your presence reveals their absence. Your clarity reveals their confusion. Your strength reveals their compromise. And they hate it because they hate being reminded of what they could be. Nietzsche saw this. He knew you don't have to attack, to disturb. You just have to live with intensity. You've stopped asking how to fit in. You've stopped needing to be understood. And in that stillness, people project everything they fear. They say you've changed, that you've grown distant, too cold, too extreme. But what they really mean is, you've become unaffected. And that is power when you no longer need to be mirrored, because you've become the mirror. And mirrors aren't always welcomed, because most people don't want truth. They want comfort. But when you speak, you pierce. When you're silent, you confront. When you stand still, they start shaking. And it's not what you said. It's what you didn't say. You no longer validate their excuses. You no longer participate in their illusion. And so, they push back or pull away. Let them, because you're not here to be digestible. You're here to be real. You're not here to protect their mask. You're here to live without one. That is why you terrify. And that is why you're needed. In a world addicted to flattery, you become the confrontation. In a world of safe silence, you become the presence. That forces the question without noise, without force, without fear, just by being, unapologetically, you. Has your silence ever been mistaken for coldness? Comment. Stillness is strength, if you know what that feels like. There comes a moment in every transformation when you stop growing and start cutting, not adding, but shedding, not building more, but burning what no longer belongs. You begin to see that strength isn't about becoming someone new. It's about releasing everything false, everything borrowed, everything small. This is the final violence, the one that doesn't destroy you, the one that frees you. Nietzsche believed that to become, you must be willing to destroy not the world, but the self you were trained to be. The smiling version, the pleasing version, the soft, apologetis, fragile version, that just wanted to be loved. That version got you here, but it cannot take you any further. You must bury it, without ceremony, without guilt, because the longer you hold on to it, the heavier it becomes. You start to carry your old self, like a dead weight, a ghost that whispers, stay safe, stay small. And the longer you listen, the more you forget. You were never meant to live that way. You were not born to be digestible. You were born to be free. And freedom is never clean. Sometimes it's a silent goodbye to people who never knew the real you, to roles you never wanted to play. Sometimes it's grief for everything you outgrew, even if it once felt like home. But mostly, it's clarity. You don't need to explain. You don't need to convince. You don't need to be forgiven. For evolving, Nietzsche didn't ask who you should become. He asked, what must die for the real you to emerge? You want to build a mind so strong it terrifies. Then Take the blade and cut. Cut what clings. Cut what dims. Cut what crawls. When you were meant to walk upright, and after the cut, stand, you are no longer who you were. And that is not a loss. That is your final liberation. Write in the comments, what part of you are you finally ready to let die? If you're still here, something in you has already changed. You're not watching this out of curiosity. You're watching because the mask no longer fits. The illusion no longer works. And the quiet voice inside that you've tried to silence is now speaking louder than ever before. You didn't come here to be inspired. You came to be confronted. And now you've seen it. Not a new belief, but a new self. A mind that no longer bends. A voice that no longer apologizes. A presence that no longer performs. Nietzsche didn't want followers. He wanted mirrors. He wanted sparks. He wanted war. Not with others, but with everything. That kept you asleep. This was never a motivational speech. It was a funeral for the version of you that begged, that bent, that waited, and a rebirth of the one who no longer does. So now, don't just nod. Don't just agree. Live it. Burn the script. Walk the path. Write your own name. In silence, let people wonder. Let them label. Let them stare. You're no longer here to be understood. You're here to be undeniable. And if this video did nothing else, let it remind you of this. You are no longer who you were, and that is your power. Now go and never explain again. If this changed how you see yourself, like, comment, and subscribe. The next transformation starts soon.